welcome once again to Marilyn. And she's actually got a bit of a voice back, not a lot. You'll be pleased. No, you won't. It's coming, and she blames her beloved. I'm sure it's not his fault. Welcome, young lady.
I don't feel very young today, I must admit. I mean, this is a horrible bug. It really is. It starts off like laryngitis. And this is now coming up to 2 weeks. The cough is horrendous. The voice comes and goes.
Talking, it must be a real bad job. No, we tease. Listen, talking about bad jobs, we came across something, again, not on the front page of any newspaper, but should be, regarding the state of dear old GB. Now, I know we have a go at GB because Marilyn is there. We're back in Spain or Southern Europe generally. But we really care for our country. Shame on the UK on this one. We've got to tell the truth. 10 million internet interactions have been discovered by the Internet Watch Foundation. Now, what have they discovered? They've discovered that during the lockdown, and indeed immediately after, men were seeking ridiculous porn sites and paedophile sites mainly, much more than any other nation. Now, what is in the British nature to do this? I mean, this is incredible. 10 million. And really, to date, it ain't getting any better, Marilyn.
Well, I know they did. I mean, I have enormous respect for the Internet Watch Foundation. The work they do is extraordinary, and they are based in Cambridge, and they have the grisly job of people literally looking at these depraved videos of what's going on with little babies and toddlers. Absolutely. If you understood what the Copine scale meant, I can explain that in a minute. But in the 6 months of lockdown, so that would be October 2020, for that month alone, they ran a project. So this is, 3.5 years ago now. And the project was they engaged 79 companies to look into the accessing and desire for child sexual abuse images. And they had 79 companies, and it was only for the 31 days in October, and only 3 got back in time with their evaluations. And those 3 came up with 8.8 million attempts just in the UK. And that was over 3 years ago. And it's much worse. And I don't know what is wrong with the general public or the men in this country and women. You can't get away from the women as well. Women do this as well. It's just appalling. And if the Copine scale, category A images of little children and babies being raped, snuff videos where children are raped and murdered and filmed for the gratification of these sick people, it is just extraordinary. And that age group is going down. Bestiality is involved in it, all sorts. And the age range is getting like almost infants and younger. That's category A. Then category B, again, in real-time film. That is anything that's not penetrative. So it's like real film of masturbation and oral sex. But again, all done on babies as well. It's just dreadful. And then category C is where the schools have to be. Anyone that's got a child-centric organization, these people are called procurers, and they trawl through the internet to see what they can find. And on category C, it would be if they could find full faces of people, arms and legs and body parts, torsos. They'll spend their whole time going through like swimming clubs, ballet clubs, football, and they send it away and have all these images airbrushed into something that is like a girly magazine, but it's basically child abuse images. So that was over 3 years ago, 8.8 million. So 10 million, it's no surprise to me at all.
Well, why we should, as a nation, be experts in this, I don't know. Certainly, they are looking at the ultra-liberal part of society, which certainly is affecting Britain more than most of the countries. Canada, of course, comes pretty close.
Yeah.
for the similar reasons. But it's something that is very difficult to control unless you've got a body there that is going to act and do something about it, i.e. Ofcom are supposed to be involved in something like this, but Ofcom has got a record like you wouldn't believe. They jump on the innocent quite often, or the easy to catch, but anything difficult. I mean, the facts are, Marilyn, forget dealing direct with the big techie companies. They're only in the business to make money. And they could stop this immediately, is what I'm saying, but they don't. So therefore, they've got to be sanctioned.
Yeah.
Is the world ready to sanction them? No.
Well, they should be, because of the harm it's causing the children. I mean, the pornography, children watching. I mean, I did a course with parents last night, and I was brutal in what I said their children are watching, age 7, because of these wretched smartphones. And I don't know what, you see, I wonder, what's the control of phones like in other countries? I don't know what it's like in Spain. Are parents more reticent to give their children phones? I don't know. Do they monitor them more? I think it's like the Wild West over here. And I was talking to the children yesterday in this school, and I actually said to them, you've been given this like adult device. How many of you think it's a toy? 10 hands went up. I said, you have not been given a toy. This is like giving the keys to your father's car and being able to drive up the M3. I said, this is as dangerous as it gets. You know, your parents wouldn't say to you, oh, look, there's the M25, just cross over it. And that's what they're basically doing. They're not monitoring what these children are up to.
Well, I was listening to the shadow minister about this very subject this morning.
Oh,
and what Labour would do. And it was all the usual tripe. Let's be honest. Oh, educate. They need educating.
Yeah, we all know that.
Don't. There's plenty of education. Oh, we need this law putting in place. We've never had so many laws or lawyers.
True.
It's failed. It's not the problem. The problem goes back to the family.
Absolutely.
To the parents.
It's the parents. You cannot get
that.
You cannot get away from it. And I said to the parents last night on this call, I said, you bought these devices. You are legally responsible for the communication that travels back and forth out of them. You are legally responsible. And I said, we've got an online safety bill. Okay, you know, better than nothing, but not brilliant. And we've got Ofcom, you know, who are running it. Well, you know, you could just as well give up on that then, because by now that online safety bill came in November. By now we should be seeing people being taken down by Ofcom for the damage it's causing. Now, interesting. This is a very lovely Catholic school I was in yesterday, and the head teacher said, you know, we had a lot of children over Christmas that were given smartphones. I said, oh yeah, because they're all going to secondary school in September. Okay. She said, the behavior is just awful since they got these phones, and since the cyberbullying, the messages they're sending each other, setting up their own WhatsApp accounts, which they shouldn't be doing because the things are encrypted and the police can't help. You should be, you know, you should not be on WhatsApp until you're 16. The number of kids that have suddenly gone in year 6 onto Snapchat, you shouldn't be on that until you're 13. What is happening with the monitoring of the online safety bill? They were supposed to be monitoring the number of children that are setting up and lying about their profiles. So, 8-year-olds setting up a profile that makes them look like they're 18. Where is who is doing this monitoring? Is it out in the ether? Who is managing it? We should be given a transparent report of Ofcom have done this week. Ofcom have taken down these porn sites, this, that, and the other. The number of children are on Discord. Discord is run by the Pornhub.
Yeah.
I mean, I despair. I find it so utterly depressing because I don't understand parents anymore. I really don't. I mean, there were some obviously really good ones. We had 40 parents online last night. That was actually a very good result. It should have been double that, but there we go. But there are some good parents out there. Of course there are. But I actually think they're in the minority. I
Well,
really,
the simple facts are, Marilyn, we've got the greatest split up marriage-wise
yeah,
in the Western world. It's over 50%.
yeah,
And if you put that in conjunction with a lot of society which is immigrant, some of the immigrants show us the way, I'll tell you, because they're stricter with the
yes,
families.
it's
But
true.
many others from other parts of the world don't help. They've got their own cultures, which we've mentioned and will mention again later on today. There are real problems here. But the biggest problem is that we don't care. I mean, we see living in Southern Europe a vast difference from the way we treat children in UK and how we treat children down here.
Yes,
How we treat the old
yes,
people down
yeah,
here,
yeah.
as opposed to how Britain does. Now, I don't know what's gone into Britain, but it certainly is not healthy, and it's coming out in every direction,
Well,
but especially
I
this
think
one.
what you've got in Europe, you do have a faith connection there. You know, you're strongly Catholic, not that I'm a fan of the Catholic Church, but there is a strong band of faith and belief and spirituality that runs across the whole of the Mediterranean Europe and even Poland, places like that. And that makes a huge difference, I think, to the way you parent and you know and how you are into family and connection. And over here it's just
Well,
it's
there's
so
nothing for
secular.
people, and especially, I mean, and again, we keep saying this. Look at the state of the church in Britain.
Yeah,
It's appalling.
it's
There's
outrageous.
nothing there that you should aim for at all.
And the other thing is as well, I find that, you know, when you go to the church, and it's all supposed to be about rejoicing, hallelujah, and all of that. It's like a morgue. You know, the prayers are so like this, the hymns are so like this. You know, where is the joy? You can go down the road and hear a gospel church, and they're nearly lifting the roof off with their praise and their lovely songs and their music.
But
And
they do have an answer to making the churches, and it came out last week, and it's called having a discotheque, a rave in the nave. This is the way the Anglican Church is going. It wants to make people enjoy services. So on a Saturday night, you get blasted, and hopefully, because you're completely horizontal by 3 o'clock in the morning, you're there for the morning service the following day. You could not write the script.
But I mean, it is so boring. I cannot see what in any way is attractive to young people going to an Anglican church or even a Catholic one for that reason. But you see, again, this church, this school I was at yesterday was Catholic, and a lot of the children do go to church on a Saturday night with their parents, and that probably will change when they're teenagers. But that ethos is there. You know, you could feel it in the school. You could feel it in the children. I like teaching in faith schools because it's tangible, that extra quality that is missing in so many schools. And I think that is some of the problem. I think there's a whole load of issues in this country that all, you know, frustration, anger, you know, lack, hopelessness. There's so much angst here, and but a lack of accountability for parenting, you know. But then you can look at like the governments. I mean, 2/3 of our children's centres have closed. Thank you very much, Mr. Government. And those are a lifeline for so many parents, good parents even. You know, parenting courses there. It wasn't just a play group. There are all sorts of things for single dads, single mums. It was a real source and resource for families. And now so many families are just stranded to get on with it. And by nature of their jobs, a lot of them work away. They're away from the network of family. And I think it's a real tough job.
Yeah, and another thing, of course, is that the village as well should be looking after the child, not
Yes.
just the parents.
No.
It's easy to say this. We've got one. I mean, we live in a large area, but the centre of that large area is a village with the Pueblo mentality.
Yeah.
And the mayor wandering around the streets on a Saturday night noticed the young people at the bus stops at the roundabouts, or as young people do, gathering, and he thought, oh, we're going to have some trouble here. So what we want to do is the police station was left empty. They've moved to a new posh building. And so the mayor said, let's convert that to a youth centre.
Yeah,
Give them somewhere to go. I thought, what a good idea.
absolutely.
So simple. Why can't we do that in UK?
I know, and when you, I don't get it, because when you walk around your average small town, even, there are derelict buildings, shops that have closed. Why can't they be converted into like gyms or boxing, boxing clubs for youngsters? I mean, boxing is such a good thing for young people. I mean, my step grandson is very good at boxing, a more gentle guy you couldn't meet. I mean, he's brilliant at boxing, but his dad set this up in Bournemouth for kids, and he has loads of members that come to the boxing club now. And that's a good way of getting out of your aggression in a controlled, sensible way.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, the purpose of what is life all about type of thing, has just somehow disappeared. I mean, I was only saying at the school yesterday, I worry for what is our country going to be like 10 years from now. I really worry about it.
Yeah. There are some good souls. I've got a mate, Winston.
Oh, there are, without a doubt.
Winston McKenzie, and people remember Winston from his boxing days, and he set up a school in London for this, and he saved many lives.
Yes,
and that's good. And he's not an academic until last year, when they actually gave him an honorary doctorship, or what do they call them these days? And he's now called a doctor. Now, you've never seen a doctor like Winston, but it's great that he's recognised, isn't it, for that? This is what should be happening.
I mean, there are so many people out there that are doing such good work. Like, I mean, John, Roger's son, who set this up, I mean, he hadn't got an O-level to his name, but my golly, can he rewire a whole network of buildings? You know what I mean? He's genius. And he's done very well for himself. He owns 4 houses and all of that, there are so many pockets of people around who are doing extraordinary good work, even if it's not across the country, but in their village, in their, 2 communities that are never recognised. Meanwhile, the idiots get knighthoods.
Yes, they do. Look, before we leave this subject completely, let's go into RAAC2. What is it?
Well, this thing with the concrete in the school. So I was at this school yesterday, right? So I've never been in a school yet where they have the rack problem. So this is the 1960s when they threw up the schools. And of course, Basingstoke, oh my golly, that is a concrete jungle. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that the schools have got a problem there. But anyway, all they had was lovely, lovely school. But the only problem they had with the rack was in their assembly hall, which is nice, big.
This is where the concrete turns to powder.
Concrete turns to powder, that's right. So they were diagnosed with this back in summer last year. And only January this year, along came the council and put up a marquee, well, a static marquee. I am not being funny. It's so big. There's only 200 children in this school. It's so big, I kid you not, you could hold 3 Indian weddings in there. It's massive. It's massive. I mean, huge. And it's like going into Wembley. And I mean, this is crazy. And little heaters in the corner. And it was an awful windy day yesterday, bitterly cold. And the wind was like clattering through this roofing, great big gaps where the roofing hadn't fitted onto the walls properly. The children, the little ones, had to come in with their scarves and hats and coats on. I was freezing. I could hardly be heard because of the noise of the wind going through this building. And they have to, in the other half of this building, I mean, that was their restaurant now, you see, that was where they have their lunch. Oh my word, so the poor cooks have to push the trolleys across this freezing cold playground into this even colder place where these poor kids have got to eat their lunch. And I said to the teacher, when do you think this is all going to be sorted? She said, I don't think it's going to be sorted properly till next year. It's costing the council £200,000 a month to have this hideous monstrosity, which is absolutely useless, not fit for purpose, in their grounds. £200,000 a month.
Councils at the moment have not done very well for themselves, and they've not done very well for themselves for years. Birmingham, of course, has illustrated this, and the government have actually had to
Yes.
send in people to run it. And we're going to cover that on another occasion, but not now. I tell you what, we've got to move on. And we've got to go back in one sense to what you've just alluded to as a divided, angry nation, which is Britain at the moment, and it's palpable. And it's not the only nation. Germany and France are similar. They relieve their tension, of course, on the main road to Paris, etc., and block it and get the farmers to help them out.
I'm sorry. I think it's funny.
Yeah, it is, but I wish our lot would do something.
We should do that. I just think it was hilarious. I watched some farmer or something just actually download all his corn or something from some balcony or something. I don't know what it was he was doing. And I just thought, good on you. I think they're brilliant.
Well, I've got something for everybody to think about. And that's what's coming out. Even some of our universities now have got the odd decent professor in there that is not woke. Well, there's hope. And this side of society are saying, do you realise there's only 10% of the elite, inverted commas, that really think the way we're all told to think by the BBC, by the newspapers? The elites are in charge. They are actually tiny, 10% maximum of the population. Now, this has been highlighted by Lee Anderson.
Yes.
And he's the man of the people. And he's quite rightly told Sadiq what he is. And if you go into Sadiq's history, he is. And he can't, oh, you can't say that. We're withdrawing the whip. Really? Do the Conservatives want the only MP in reform to come? Because without proportional representation, even though reform may get 15, maybe 20% of the vote, they're going to finish up with nothing.
Yeah, well, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah. Because of first past the post. But there's one person that could break that, because Lee is loved so much in the Midlands that they could say, Beggar the hindmost in all this, we'll vote for reform.
Well, what I find odd is that they're all going on about Islamophobia and all this, and I think I do think it's awful. The same with the anti-Semitism. I just think I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. But I think you got to look further downstream or upstream in a way. Are the ministers speaking out like this because they have got their constituents breathing down their neck about where has our little town or our village gone? Where, you know, we've got another mosque being built. And, you know, I do think the balance is tipped too far the other way. And so therefore people are getting extreme with, oh, you know, Islam's are taking over, blah, blah, blah. And I do think those comments are going around. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people, I mean, going on about the Muslim faith, not Muslims necessarily, but it is there. And there's no point in smacking Lee Anderson or Suella Braverman or anybody else that I think are being fueled and fired up by their constituents. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think it's MPs, you know, being loose-tongued and creating conspiracy theories. I think they have listened to their constituents personally, because you've only got to go in your local pub. You've only got to be at a friend's house. The subject comes up. And I don't believe it's just, as I say, some loose-tongued MPs. I really don't.
You've got it right. I mean, there was a classic example of an Ipsos poll in The Guardian, of course, last week. And the dear old Guardian, running true to form, said, oh, look, we've got a situation here where the NHS is the chief problem for any government that's going to get elected this autumn. Well, it suits them to say that. But you drill down into this, and Ipsos asks 1,000 people. I'm sorry, that's not a blooming proper poll.
No, exactly.
1,000 people No wonder they came out top of the list with the NHS. I'll tell you what, it's top of the list. Nobody says it's any higher than third or fourth. Immigration. It is for much of the country. It might not be in the leafy glades, but certainly in the red area in the north of England, then you've got a real problem.
This is why people voted for Brexit. The people that voted for Brexit, their main concern was immigration, and you can't get away from that. So the fact that that was never tackled, as was promised with Brexit, that has got worse, more people coming in now than ever before Brexit. This is what is frustrating people and winding them up, because they have been failed by the promise that was made.
And you daren't say anything.
Oh,
it's the proverbial, and we covered this on a program yesterday, but I'm sorry, we're going to mention it again. It's the proverbial elephant in the room. You've got a situation here that you daren't say anything, like Lee Anderson.
yeah.
Oh, you're a racist. Nothing to do with racism.
No, it's got nothing to do with racism.
It's complete and utter nonsense.
It's to do with mathematics.
Yes.
The number of people that are coming in versus this minus that is an equation.
And it's more nuanced than that. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's coming out of the woodwork that whenever you see unusual events in Britain, murders, acid or alkaline being thrown in people's faces, this last terrible tragedy of a mother killing her 3 children, knifing them to death. And almost all, some people say as high as 90%, difficult to prove that one, but the majority are from different ethnic backgrounds. We've never had horrendous stuff like this before. You have the odd horrendous stuff, of course, the Moors murders, etc. But not in the quantity that's happening again. And it comes from what is acceptable in other societies. They bring over to Britain. They do not join in society. They don't integrate. And you have tragedy after tragedy. Well, and nobody dare say anything because they would have their collar felt.
I think it's probably less so when you've got people who are coming over here from other countries with professions, you know, which is, we're going back to the Enoch Powell speech. He was saying that people that came in to work as dentists, doctors in the NHS, teaching, whatever, that came with a profession to contribute, or shop owners, you know what I mean, to contribute to our society. He was saying he doesn't count those as migrants. They are people that have come with professional backgrounds to contribute. He was talking about the people that come in on a ticket with a family, marry someone they've never seen before. And, you know, that's not right. But, you know, people, they do come in here, and I understand, having been an expat, I understand the sort of mentality of like living in your silos, because when I lived in Portugal, we were there 2 years, and yes, I learned Portuguese fluently, and what an awful language that is, and I did that, but I was like ostracized, if you like, by the expat community, because I didn't want to sit and drink beer and gossip all day long. But again, all the expats, the British expats, would stick together. And if you can understand it, you've got the same interests back home. You've got the same humor. You've got cultural beliefs. You can't leave your culture behind. It goes with you in your backpack. We're just as guilty. We're just as guilty when we go abroad. I remember when I was living in Portugal, and a lot of these expats would set up businesses under the radar, so they wouldn't pay their taxes. Can you imagine if that happened here, when people from abroad come over here and they don't pay their taxes and they're illegal? It goes on in Portugal. People that like looked after villas, run swimming pools, and they never declared the money that they earn. And I used to say to them, you would be the first to object if this happened in England. So it's double standards.
It is, and it needs pointing out, and we do this in our local programming. We have local programs as well. You're missing so much if you don't integrate, if you do not learn the language.
Yeah.
You're living half a life. It's all right to enjoy the sunshine. But I'm sorry, the sunshine is not there forever.
Learning a new language, especially if you're in your 50s, say, it's a great contributor to not getting dementia, because you're activating your brain. That learning a new skill actually grows new neural pathways.
Yeah, it's actually another report's come out this last week about that very thing. But actually, if you've got two languages, you're less likely to get dementia.
That's right. That's
So
absolutely
maybe
right.
it is use it or you lose it.
Yeah, I still absolutely right. That's right. And you know, I just did it because I just thought it was the right thing to do. I thought, we're living in Portugal. It used to drive me mad. These people that had lived there for 20 years and couldn't even say good morning and thank you at their local golf club to the Portuguese staff. Absolute laziness beyond, and white supremacy. Do you know what I mean? Just really, really annoyed me that you can't be bothered. You are, you know, and again, we would be the first people to complain when people come to this country and they don't speak our language.
There's a special reason in Britain, of course, because the education system is lousy regarding languages. And it's so easy to learn a language if you get hold of a little one.
Yeah.
They don't know they're learning a language. It's just a different word.
It's just good fun.
And
It's
it's
good
so
fun.
easy. The older you get, the more difficult it is.
But I remember being very much embraced by the Portuguese because I was learning the language.
Yes.
And then I did it so well that, and I think part of it is because I've also got a music. I pick up languages by listening to the dynamics and the pitch and the fall, you know what I mean?
You're a lucky lady because you can't learn Portuguese normally, everybody who's trying. It is a very difficult language.
It's incredibly hard.
I speak Spanish, but everybody says, "Oh, you can speak Spanish." No, I can read Portuguese. Forget even speaking it. I know more Russian than.
It's extremely. In fact, the Eastern
If you've
Europeans.
not got a language brain, I do feel sorry for you. I haven't.
Yeah.
But we've been here that long; it eventually gets through.
Yeah, I think if you see, music itself is a foreign language, isn't it? You see, and it's and you hear the intonation, you hear. I mean, Portugal, the Portuguese, it's a very up and down, isn't it? Sort of bom dia, bom dia, it's up and down, and they squash their words together. So it's not like French, where you can look at a French script and think, put a bit of ooh la la with it, I'll be understood. But you can't do that with Portuguese. Everything's squashed together. It actually is the most ugly language. I'm sorry, but it sounds like you're clearing out your nose and your throat.
Well, it does. There's an S on everything, isn't there?
It's awful.
And of course, living in Andalusia, where it's like living in the northeast of England and trying to understand the London accent. It's completely different, and you drop every S on a word in Andalusia you can. It's the complete difference in Portugal, so we struggle in Portugal, to be honest. But there you go. Let's move on from languages. I'm going to get in trouble again. GB News has had tremendous success despite everybody, well, the 10% elites, having a go at them. It's survived and it's thriving. The figures are excellent. But certain things are getting and annoying people. I thought it was just me. In their quest to be even-handed and get a lefty versus a righty on a program to give a balance, they've gone a little OTT. And what happens, especially late at night, is they get a lefty that is completely and utterly without reason or hope. They will put an argument that is absolutely vacuous forward just for the sake of giving the opposite point of view. And it's starting to get up other people's noses as well. It seems to be they don't do that much in the daytime programs. They're more considered. But at night, to get the tabloid presence in, they usually choose a real lefty. Now, there are lefties on GB News and other news programs, one has to say. There's a reason. You might not agree with them, believe in what they say, but they're reasoned and go on, have a shout. You know, we believe in freedom of speech. And there's the other type that are completely dogmatic and come out with outrageous statements. And all it is to create a fight. Now, I don't like that personally, and many others don't. And I use that dreadful on-off button, I'm afraid now, even with GB News, and I'm a fan of what GB News stands for and are doing.
I think at times it's very shouty, and I don't really like that, and I switch it off when it gets like that. And you do get, I think with a lot of these Talk TV is another one where they have some very opinionated presenters, and you get two presenters maybe side by side behind the desk, and they're chatting. I tell you, it's an absolute irritant when you've been asked to go on at 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and you're watching the clock and you're due to go on and you're already 15 minutes late and you got up early, and it's so annoying while these presenters are sort of like chatting, arguing about a point, blah, blah, blah. And you're thinking, if you don't hurry up, I'm going to hang up. And then you go on. I mean, especially Talk TV, there was one particular lady who I agree with her opinions, but I do wish she would allow her guests more airtime.
Yeah, you've been talking when you are putting your opinion on Zoom or whatever, and they're free to control you by Zoom, aren't they? If you're in studio, which I know you are on quite a number of occasions, it's a bit easier to handle.
I mean, I've had to say a couple of times, especially if it's an early call, you know, I was saying, I'm not doing this for 2 minutes airtime where I'm going to be overspoken by this particular presenter. I'll come on for a minimum of 5 minutes if she is told to keep silent.
Like it. Well, listen,
JHB are her initials.
Yes.
I like her. I get on with her now, but she does prattle on. I mean, she's not wrong with what she says, quite honestly, but it doesn't give a lot of airtime space for the guest, who is actually more of an expert.
Yes. Can I say, as a mere male, and we have different brains than females, according to a leading university in the US, of course, where else? Well, if it needs a leading university to tell you that in the US, I'm sorry.
Is that how they spend their money?
Well, yes. So why I'm mentioning this is that we play a game in our house before anybody opens their mouth. Is he or she, particularly she, so I'm going to be accused of misogyny here. That's all right. We work out, are they lefties or are they righties? Now, as a mere male, I look at the makeup of the House, well, not the Lords, the Commons, of course, in Westminster. And I look at the Labour benches and I compare them with the Tory benches. And then they come on camera in a studio. And this is generalization because there are certain notable exceptions. But I'm about 90% correct before people open their mouths, whether they're a lefty or a righty. And can I say, if you're a righty, you tend to be, as a lady, in my humble eyes, a darn sight more attractive than the average lefty. I don't know why that is, because they've never opened their mouth. But the hair's combed, and the length of the hair tends to be longer than the lefty's. Let's go for this one and shout at me, everybody. Write in. No, you don't write in anymore. Email in. And there are certain. They tend to be of a more amplier stature.
Yes, I knew that was coming.
The lefties, they're not very attractive, some of them. And I'm wondering why is there is. I mean, I'm 90% correct. My wife giggles because I usually get it right. Now, there is a difference. Marilyn, I'm coming to you for help.
I don't think I can. I don't know. I think I don't know whether maybe.
Do they not have a comb?
Well, I don't know whether. What am I saying here? You could say I'm a righty, I suppose. I went to private school and all of that, and you were taught very much to sort of about your personal appearance, that you know, and taking pride in your appearance. So I was brought up by nuns, you know, and I do believe in that. I think you perform better if you go to school. I always work out what I'm going to wear, even when I'm presenting to schools like I do now. And I think if you dress well, you do your hair, you put your makeup on, you know, you do give a better performance. And I used to, when I was teaching music, and I used to say, like, look, I'm going to wear a really nice dress tonight, kids, and I want you to come in with a clean shirt, with your hair in ponytails and nicely combed hair, all smart. If you look like that, you will perform better. And it is true. And I don't know whether lefties are more like, take me as I am. I don't give a, you know what I mean? I don't know. I have never frankly considered it. I know what you're saying by the observation of left and right. I know what you know, because Roger is quite vocal about this. Does she have to look so ugly? Is there a prize? You know?
How unkind, tell him. Yes. Listen, we move on. Well, a bit more bad news, I'm afraid. This very day, it's been discovered that the United Kingdom is 15 years behind in cancer results. In other words, there's been great strides towards curing certain cancers, improving the longevity of other cancers. Massive strides in the last 15 years, but Britain is still 15 years behind. People are dying, and I'm afraid it's back to the NHS. Please, people, please love the NHS when it comes to the workers, or most of them. They are brilliant. They hold your hand when that's needed. They cure you when that's needed. But I'm afraid the leaders of the NHS, and I'll go into that shortly, are killing you. If you've got cancer, go abroad to be treated.
Well, I totally agree. I had a very sad email from a friend of mine, and her 21-year-old daughter, 21, was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer, very unusual, rare kind, and they got her to America, and she had 2 rounds of operations. She's still with us. She's on chemo. She's been brought back here for further chemo now. But I would rate her chance. I mean, liver cancer, that's it, isn't it? It's a killer. My son and his wife's best friend from university was 21. She died of a very rare liver cancer. If I had cancer, I tell you, I would be on the first plane to America if I could afford it, because they're so advanced over there. They don't take risks. I mean, I know 2 friends of mine who had breast cancer, and in both cases, they ended up passing away. And in both cases, the oncologist said, you know, which isn't helpful, with hindsight, we think we should have given you a mastectomy. In America, they would just take them both off and that's it. You know, you're treated, you know, right, let's get rid of it. I do think they're way ahead of us in the States, way ahead of us. And I think COVID, lockdown, that hasn't helped. People that never had cancer diagnosed during lockdown, or people that were stage 2, didn't know it, out of lockdown, came out with stage 4. They weren't getting the treatments they should have got. So, yeah. And I mean, I can even relate to my husband. I mean, it's Christmas before last, being told that he had a heart disease, and the woman in charge of the A&E that day was a cardiologist, and he said, if you want him to live, go privately. And we got a letter only last week from the NHS to say his space for a consultation had come up. That was 15 months after his accident.
It's awful, and it's doubly awful when things can be done and everybody says, "Oh, it can't be solved. It's too big. The
But
NHS is too
I
big."
also, Rodney, I do, as you know, I do a lot with the university in Essex, yeah, and there's a team of us that are lived experience ambassadors, and we get involved. And one of the guys was an NHS GP, and we were having a chat the other day, and he said it's so toxic. NHS is an utterly toxic organisation. And he said people don't listen, they don't want to know, they shut you out, they only want to keep things under their own umbrella, and they don't have a willingness to learn. I was surprised at how outspoken he was.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It goes worse than that in actual fact, because it can be solved so easily.
No, it could be.
No, it can't. Yes, it can. And I'll tell
Yes,
you
it
how to
can.
do
You've got the wrong people at the top, and it's all to do with the
Yeah,
management.
that is the first thing, the wrong people at the top. And let me tell you something else. Who are the wrong people? The trade unions are the biggest killers
yeah.
in the NHS. They want to keep the doctors on hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. They want to keep the doctors, the young doctors, on strike. And you're killing people, trade
Yeah,
unions,
because
as are the over echeloned people there that infest the HR departments and any other department that's not needed in the NHS. There are many. And the only way to solve this is what other countries have done. It's been easier for them because they came later on the scene. We were the first to get a proper national health service going, and we're paying dearly for that, because you've got to work with the private sector. There's the answer.
Yeah,
you
do.
Work hand in hand with the private sector, and everybody wins. And as a government, anybody that funds private education and pays for their own children to go to a private school, who pays for private treatment, health treatment, should be immediately given 20% tax relief, because that will save the government a fortune in education and in health. It's so easy to do, but we have a mafia. Leading it are the trade unions and the posh doctors. The BMA is a trade union.
The BMA
is just about the worst one you can imagine.
The PMA is a toxic organisation, definitely. But having this, I mean, this was a really interesting conversation I had with this guy, and we were talking about the Letby case and all of that, and how, good doctors do report stuff, whistleblowers do, but if the person at the top, the HR, the line manager, doesn't want to take it any further, it's because he was talking about safeguarding, and he said, "Oh, you should get in there." I said, "They don't want me in there. They don't want me in there. They think they're doing it right, and they're not.
No,
but they're convinced they are. They just are so resistant to external people coming in, and that's an arrogance. That's a real arrogance."
Over the years, I built up a lot of pals in the medical world, because we do a lot of medical programs from all over the world. So we know the state of each nation. And I came pretty close to the Great Reaper about 3 years ago. And I had to make a choice between staying in Portugal, Spain, and coming back to the UK. So I phoned up my doctor pals in the United Kingdom, and without a single dissension, they say, "Do you want to die? Don't come back here." But being stubborn and wanting to come back to my dear old country, I checked out, and I thought, well, if I go private, maybe they will treat me. I couldn't get even one private doctor to treat me. Now, there are various reasons for that, which we'll go into when the full tale comes out with a future medical program. But that's how bad things are. When your local GP, when my pals that are eminent surgeons telling me, "Do you want to die? Stay where you are."
I know. You talk to anybody, I mean, they are very negative about the organisation, and I think the last Saturday, Roger got this terrible chest infection. So I thought, I know what, it's a Saturday, can't get a doctor, can you? You can only get ill Monday to Friday. I went to the pharmacy thinking that, oh yes, they can do medications now. No, only if it's an infected insect bite. And I thought, right, what do I do? Walk-in clinics, there we are, we'll do that. No, they were all shut because of the junior doctors' strike. Now, how many people, and in the end, I mean, how many people is that impacted across the UK? In the end, I took him to A&E on the Saturday night to find one person in front of me. And I reckon that's because people stayed away because of the junior doctors' strike. We were in and out in half an hour. I've never known that in my entire life.
That's a miracle.
A miracle, absolutely. But it's just awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
But
We'll
I
move
thought
on.
that.
We've completely overrun
Oh,
again. But we have to leave with your opinion again, Madame, if you would kindly give it. There's a lot of celebrities about. It all starts in Hollywood, of course, then spreads throughout the world. And they're great to give their opinion. The latest has been dear old Charlotte Church, who has got a choir together, literally singing from the to the sea. In other words, pro-Palestinian, in this wonderful choir, Welsh choir, sings beautifully, but she's an obvious sympathizer with one side as opposed to the other. Now, you get this with celebrities. Well, it's called Linacreitis.
I was just going to say, it's called Linacreitis, absolutely.
Now, what do we do with the dear celebs? What are they about? Now, there is two arguments on here. We got probably one of the best presidents of the United States, now no longer with us, who was a cowboy. Perhaps you need to be a cowboy to be president. Some people think Trump's a cowboy, but that's another story. But Ronnie Reagan, bless him, came out of Hollywood, and he was a superb president.
Yeah.
Big mate with Mrs. T, of course, and they were both superb. They got it right in their day. But this is politics. Should they be staying out of it with very few exceptions?
Well, I do think if you are a celebrity, you have a sort of elevated duty of care, if you like. I don't know. You could say it's free speech. You're not entitled to do what you want, but I don't know.
Are you an influencer? Yes, of course you are.
Oh,
it's a horrible term, isn't it?
I can't stand the term, but I don't know. She could say, well, it's free speech, and I'm not sure it's best practice, put it that way, because you carry with, it's like any ambassador in sport, you carry a sort of a duty of care and accountability and a responsibility that, you show good behavior on the pitch and stuff like that. You are in a position where you've got a lot of money coming your way, where there is a degree of accountability with it. And what influence are you having on other people? And I don't always think general public is entirely intelligent, actually, with their views.
Well, I'll tell you something, the general public quite often know a lot more politically, if you wish, than a celebrity, because they are living in a bubble.
Yeah. Oh, true.
With very few examples, from the other point of view, I say to people, well, yeah, look where they're coming from, what they're gaining out of it, if they are. Some people aren't, but they're of no better opinion than your opinion.
I just think you can't give an opinion on anything anymore. It's just becoming ridiculous over here. Absolutely ridiculous. You can't do anything without you're going to be clobbered with something. It's just dreadful. It really is awful.
Well, there you go. We've ended on a negative note. We usually end on a positive note, but no, the springtime is about to burst forth, or fifth even. I tell you one thing we miss being abroad, and that's the daffodils. You get lovely daffodils all over the show. We don't. It's too hot for them here. They'll just die and shrivel in the soil.
And the crocuses and they are popping up everywhere over here, and it's the best color, isn't it, to get rid of the gloom of the winter. Yellow,
sunshine color.
They're just, and I know there's so many different daffodils as well. It's lovely, and then the bluebells will come out. I do like spring, I have to say.
Yes,
I'm always glad when January and February has disappeared. I find it so.
Willie Wordsworth got it right, after all. So there are beautiful things that
Yeah, I mean, and nature is beautiful. Creation is beautiful. Go and sit down by your beach and look at the. I mean, I do find somebody once told me I had a Celtic religion because I do love nature and walking around, and just seeing the buds of spring and stuff like that. It all coming back to life again. And I think people just a lot of people just walk around with their blinkers on. And I love it, all the little birds and they've got little birdies nesting in our garden, and it's I love all that.
There you go. I think that's all right as long as you don't go with the other extreme and get global warming in your.
Well, we're very lucky in England because we have 4 seasons, don't we?
Yes.
I think people miss the seasons when they go abroad. Whereas Bermuda does have seasons. It has the 4 seasons.
There you go.
I go there Friday week. I can't wait.
Again. That's
Again.
all right. You've got a good excuse. Daughter lives there. We're going, and we'll see you next week for
Take care, everyone.
more sorting out the world's problems.
Be an upstander, not a bystander. Bye-bye.